Hello. Yeah. Yeah, it seems so. Yeah, everything is fine. I will talk to Shubhi in some minutes because I'm setting up a live streaming also. This time though we are streaming it on our YouTube and all the pages and everything parallelly. On all our websites and everything, it's going simultaneously. Also, there can be more international participation this time. Okay. I've sent the questions to Shubhi earlier today. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So we are making high tech this time. Yeah. High tech this time. It's going live on YouTube and embedded on all the three websites. Yeah.
She is insisting
Oh.
I'm going for a ride. I said that because I'm also feeling a little tired. And she doesn't see anything, but she says that she would feel much better. She wants to go for a ride. So
Then you go.
I'll just over an hour I'll be gone with her. So we'll just drive the usual route.
Yeah.
She doesn't see anything, but if she feels happy, then
Yeah. So you don't see my program.
No, I don't see.
Okay.
But you've got Shubi helping you?
Huh?
You've got Shubi?
Yeah, Shubi is there, of course. Yeah.
That looks very professional, this structure that you have there now.
This one. Yeah. How would the screen look like now? You can see it now. You are...
Are we going now?
Yeah. Yeah.
Would you mind opening your car or unlocking it?
Yeah.
The window because the sticks are there.
Okay. Okay. I do it from here. Yeah, I'll do it when you do go down.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye-bye. I didn't see. There was no call here. Shall I open it? Eh? Okay. Yeah, maybe I didn't hear it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Should we? Yeah. Yeah. Now, this time, two more things to be careful about. We have announced the meeting in many groups now, including the link. So there will be many people whom we do not know would be coming in. So therefore, I mean, Zoom warns in such situation that sometimes, many people try to spam in when there is open links available. Spamming means, promotion advertisements, or for example, dating sites and all these kind of people. They come and they try to put something on our running. But anyway, we have muted on video and audio for everybody who are coming in. So therefore, there is no possibility of anybody doing anything. But later, so we will admit everybody, but they will be muted and they will be the video will be off initially. And if any chance, I mean, have a look in between. If it's not like that, just mute everybody except we both. Yeah. That is one thing. So we are taking these 4 questions, and there can be 1 or 2 questions more coming. But and then another thing that we are doing this time is what we are now going on Zoom is going live on YouTube also. Hello. Yeah, the line has cut off. Yeah. Another thing that we are doing, are you there? Yeah, we are doing this time is this is going live on YouTube also. And then embedded on all our websites, which means, for example, if you now just type sanaledamaruku.com, there is a box there, and when the show goes, it goes parallelly there also in a box. Also in the Rationalist International website, this goes simultaneously embedded from YouTube. So we will have a very large audience this time. So in our Zoom, we may have 25, 35 people only, but the general viewership will be very, very large now, much more. So that doesn't mean anything. I mean, don't be tense or anything. Just we do as usual. Make it light, humorous. I mean, you know how to do it. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Perfect. If anything, any question in between, you can text me in between also during the meeting also. Yeah. But you know the general interest of things, and I mean just handle it easily. Okay. Okay then. Yeah.
If you work in a team, you've got to try Monday.com. Go to Monday.com and manage all your team's work on a powerful platform.
I think we can start with everything now. Welcome, everyone. I am Shubhi Sinha from the youth wing of Rationalist International. I will be hosting today's event, Weekend Meeting with Sanal Edamaruku. Friends in the United States have requested a change in the time of our weekend meeting to suit participants from all parts of the world. For example, for those who are in Los Angeles, now it is 5:30 a.m., too early for Saturday morning. Also, from India, there are proposals to move the time forward either to 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. Considering all these proposals, next week onwards, the weekend question answer session with Sanal Edamaruku will be at the following time: India 9 p.m., UK 3:30 p.m., Finland 5:30 p.m., German, Sweden, and Poland 4:30 p.m., UAE 7:30 p.m., and for New York in USA it will be 10:30 a.m. While for Los Angeles it will be 7:30 a.m. To remember it easily, next week's meeting will start exactly 2 hours later than the present time. Coming to today's meeting, we have received 32 questions today. We will be taking up only 4 questions today. The questions on the same topics are clubbed together, and some questions are forwarded to the next weekend. Uh, a few words about the general good practices to be followed. Please keep your microphone on mute as this meeting is video recorded. Voices coming from your end will disturb the recording quality. If you want any new questions to be asked, please raise your hand. There is an icon at the bottom of your Zoom page. There will be an opportunity to ask questions directly to Sanal Edamaruku after the present questions are taken up. Please remember that avoid sub questions. We welcome you, sir. So now to the questions. This is a question by John Edwards from UK as well as KG Gopal from New Delhi. So the question is, there is a worldwide campaign promoting halal meat and it is clean and pure. What is halal meat basically, and beyond religion and faith, are there any health benefits in halal, kosher or jhatka meat?
Well, I mean, that's a question partially we have discussed earlier also, because the question of halal is coming as a major international campaign everywhere in the world. There's an international halal committee that would now decide what is halal and what is haram. So everybody who wants to look at the market, that the people who are following halal laws are trying to make a label on any product that they have, that it is halal. And what does halal means? It simply is an Arabic word which means the way the God permissed. Permissible, that's the only meaning of that word. Haram is not permissible. Why it is permissible and why certain things are not permissible, the criteria were decided simply by some religious scriptures. Most of these beliefs are coming from Semitic beliefs that existed for a long time. For example, Talmud speaks about how the Jews should make their food, especially when it comes to cutting of animals for food. They have very special laws. For some reason, in the whole of Semitic area, it was believed that blood is sin. Therefore, draining the blood of the animal is very important in the Semitic belief. Therefore, the Talmud very clearly says that there are different laws. I mean, for example, you cannot eat any animal which has, which doesn't have more than 2 claws. You cannot eat any fish that does not have scales. Or, for example, crab or shrimp practically would be forbidden. For a Jew, as well as for a Muslim, it's forbidden. As per the law, even for Bible, for example, in Old Testament, you find all these laws continuing there, but nobody cares about that nowadays. Maybe very fanatic people who follow all these verbatim may still be following such things. But the fundamental law of the Jews is about how to make their food as per the wishes of God, is what is there in the kosher meat. So kosher meat insists on one thing: drain the blood completely. And there are techniques to drain the blood. For example, salting it so that the blood is completely out, because blood is part of sin. That's the whole idea. Later, from the same area, another religion came. I mean, of course, Christianity followed the same thing. Old Testament of the Jews and Christians are the same. But when it came to Islam, they made a wide set of laws about a lot of things. What to be eaten, what not to be eaten, are very clearly decided by Allah, as if He's very carefully watching what we eat and what is sin and what is not sin. Are we following the laws of Allah or not, is what He is very busy with all the time. So if a Muslim, who is a very devout one, happens to get exposed to meat that is not halal, he would feel that he has done a great sin. I've seen Muslim friends coming to common parties and ask carefully whether it is halal meat. And if it's not halal meat, they would carefully avoid eating any meat. But if suppose somebody says, just for convincing these people that it is halal, they would eat it, because there is no way to check whether a certain meat is halal or cut in the way which is prescribed by the Quranic verses or Talmud. But by taste, you cannot identify it. By its texture, you cannot identify it. And in no way you can find it, but you have to just take it for granted what is told to you. So people, I know so many people, for the market purpose, just stamp the name halal to win the Muslim market, or put a kosher mark to get the Jew market. But nowadays, the religious zealots are very active, and they are insisting on the fine details of how the meat is to be cut. But what is the fundamental problem in that? Why should, for example, why should not we eat any meat from an animal which does not have proper claws as described by these laws? For example, pork is consumed by a large section of the population in the world. Almost the whole of Northern America and Western Europe, pork is consumed. That's the major part of the diet. Though many of them are part of the belief system, at least technically, of Christianity, nobody cares about that nowadays. But the zealot people perhaps follow these kind of things. I know a lot of people, for example, you go to a flight, you are asked, do you want kosher food or do you want halal food? Many flights ask it, because certain people are so clear what they want and they insist on that. Now the problem is, when what is involved in the halal slaughtering. That is the fundamental issue that worries me many times. I'm a meat eater. I like almost all meat that is eaten by people. I like seafood. I like fish. I mean, clearly I'm a non-vegetarian. But I would feel a little bad if somebody offers me halal meat. You know why? I feel it's inhuman for me if I have another option to eat a meat that is not slaughtered, not by the halal methods. Why? Because halal method of slaughtering involves enormous cruelty. Though it was originally meant 1400 years back when it was starting, it was originally apparently meant to to do it all properly with the knowledge that we had at that time. This was not the invention of Muhammad, or the people who codified Quran, but the common belief that existed in that area that has been carried in this text. They believed that animals should get, and maybe perhaps it has good intentions along with their mythology. The mythology is very clear: blood is bad and it's a sin coming from the Jewish belief. But more than that, why should Jehovah or Allah be too much worried about blood that we consume? All the animals, predators, lion, tiger, any other animal, leopard, any other animal which is a predator would drink milk also. It doesn't drain the milk. These animals don't drain the milk, drain the blood, but clearly eat the meat with the blood. So if there was a law that the gods wanted, that we should not consume the blood with the meat, why on earth these animals are not draining the blood and eating it straight away? So in the natural form of eating meat, it is not done. Perhaps humans also in the ancient times did not do it. But later, like taboos existed in every part of the world, this taboo became very predominant, and this became a part of the major belief system. But eventually people thrown it off also. For example, though Bible speaks about the same kind of taboos, this taboo is not followed by majority of the people who are born in Christian families, because a new culture, the Western culture, swallowed what is known as the Christian culture. Western culture was more predominant than the Christian culture, and it had an influence on that. So they have forgotten about pork, which is forbidden. They've forgotten about blood that is to be drained as per the laws of Allah or Jehovah, and also fish without scales or other seafoods, all they eat. We all eat. But the moment somebody says that halal meat is, well, it is pure, as if the other meats are not pure. In modern abattoirs, in almost all modern countries, there are laws that very clearly say how an animal should be slaughtered, what kind of healthy practices are to be followed, how a veterinary doctor should certify that it's a healthy animal. And that's more valid than any divine laws, because these laws are, whether it's implemented or not correctly is a different question. But once it's implemented correctly, that's the best law, because that's based on our understanding about what is good and what is bad. I know personally, I've seen also how animals are slaughtered in Delhi's Jama Masjid area. Behind the shops which are marked halal, I've seen that animals' legs are broken and their head was hit by huge hammers. And then there is a stamp in front of the shop that it's halal meat. I've seen, with my own eyes I have seen. Because in Delhi, still you get buffalo meat in certain areas. And I've seen with my own eyes how cruelly these animals are killed, not slaughtered even. Slaughtering was done after brutally their legs were broken because they should not run away, and their head was hit by huge hammers. Illegal. No animal can be killed like that. It's illegal, but it's done. But still there's a stamp halal, and people are happy, and people from Muslim background are buying it happily and taking it away. Okay, that's about the practice. But coming more to it, there are two principles involved in halal slaughtering. One is the animal should be fully conscious, because they have a special prayer for the animal. Before slaughtering, they should deliver a prayer. And this prayer is so important that the animal is blessed. And with conscious mind, the animal should hear it. If the animal is stunned, for example, it cannot hear or understand as per their belief. These animals are understanding this special prayer starting with Bismillah. So with the conscious mind, the animal should understand this, number one. And number two, with a sharp knife, the neck should be slitted from down. And 3 cords are cut. That includes the line that takes the blood circulation. And number 2, the breathing pipe. That's also cut. And you know what happens? The cord that connects your brain to your body is not cut off. Only these 3 pipes are cut. Which means what? Once the blood is draining out, the animal gets tired completely and it gets panic. And it cannot breathe anymore because the windpipe is cut. It takes nearly 10 minutes for the animal's brain to die because of the lack of oxygen, and it suffers such a great persecution, such a great suffering for nearly 10 minutes with this cutting. It's one of the cruelest way of killing an animal in modern times. Ancient times, well, that was perhaps one of the best ways possible. Now we have modern slaughtering machines, modern abattoirs are there. There are strict laws governed by our health system, how these are to be done. You know, in most of the developed countries, animals are killed only after stunning them with mild electricity. It gets a small electric shock. It doesn't know anything, and it doesn't have any pain at that moment. And then the slaughter is done very thoroughly, that it does not have any pain. The period that's involved, where it can have, you know, the problem of gasping, for breath or the draining of blood, it doesn't experience anything. So, for example, the animal rights movement, PETA, very clearly says that this is one of the cruelest way of killing an animal. One of the most cruel ways that we have to kill an animal. But look at the Halal, committee, International Committee for Halal Conservation and all. They would insist that this is the healthiest way of doing things. This is what God wants. Moreover, the animal would suffer. I've been checking their website. What is the suffering of the animal? Because it will have a death before consciously hearing the prayer. What a pity. It should get the prayer on its ears with a conscious mind, understanding that the blood is oozing out and gasping for air just because it should get the basic prayer that is to be administered to it. This fundamental belief, based on an ancient scripture, is imposed on this animal just on the sake of it. Therefore, I would feel, if I have an option to have any meat without this halal torture on the animal, I would prefer that. I would certainly prefer that. Because see, like many other animals which are living on other animals, for protein, we are eating meat, and that is part of human life. And a lot of people in the world, are eating meat. But all the same, we should be able to reduce the pain of the animal to the maximum extent possible, because we have scientific ways to handle it. All the modern abattoirs in our country, in India, elsewhere in Europe, in America, everywhere, modern abattoirs have very clear ways of stunning the animal and avoiding any kind of pain to the animal. But why it's objected anywhere? In Britain, Mohan Malhotra is here from Britain, he knows, see, there is a law that it should be stunned, but all this same, there is an exemption that if it's for religious purpose, the slaughtering is done, you can do it without stunning also. And also the Halal Committee has now said, stunning of the head is okay, but the body is not okay. But stunning, what does it mean, basically? These are all, you can make any kind of fatwa, a religious order by a religious scholar to ratify anything. You know, in many European countries where halal slaughtering is not allowed, without stunning, slaughtering is not allowed in many countries. There are fatwas already given by Islamic scholars. Well, stunning is possible. So it can be interpreted conveniently whenever it is necessary. I think all religious laws, when it is imposed on people who are living in another century than it was originated, they have to, if they follow those religion, still they have to follow the modern scientific information to reduce suffering of anything, any animal. If you want to eat, well, one can opt that we are not going to eat meat, but that's not the way to handle things. We are, meat eating and fish eating people. And I would certainly like my steak, but I would not like to have a steak from an animal which is slaughtered cruelly.
I absolutely agree on this. I think I would have the same preference. So moving on to the next question. This question is by Taraka Bodhi and Kandi from Sri Lanka. And the question is, I have seen many documentaries on Discovery, BBC, and on Australian TV about your rural campaign called Rationalist Reality Theatre. Can you explain that program?
Well, Shubhi can explain it better than me because you have been part of that from your little childhood.
Absolutely.
Because Rationalist Reality Theatre has been a program the Indian Rationalist Association developed in India. I mean, spontaneously we developed this pattern without thinking much because we have to outreach the village people. Those were not the times of television when we started this kind of program. We went to villages. You know, I've been in 1995, I've been traveling from the southern tip of India to New Delhi, covering around 1,000 villages, reaching out each and every village, asking and understanding their local superstition and trying to, the team of people along with me, they've shown how these local miracles of sleight of hand are happening. You know, these are two different things. I would still address spirituality in a different level, but the issues with the fraudulent miracle men doing are to be handled in a very, very different way because common people are certainly afraid of all these magical feats these people are doing. Therefore, we try to explain it, show them how it is functioning. And this has been before the television times. I mean, we had this Rationalist Reality Theatre working everywhere. Nowadays, it may not work because, you know, the pattern that we developed is already exposed. What we did was, one of our colleagues would dress up like a holy man. He would go to a village, sit there and claim that he's a holy man. Maybe he has a chela, a disciple with him. Sometimes my son was a little disciple of a guru when he was a young boy. Then I can tell one small example, one case study of one of the last exposures we have done was in an Uttar Pradesh village, organized by one of my friends in his native village. And this was, I think, this was for Discovery Channel, or they wanted to show the people how the Rationalist Reality Theatre is working. So the person who is dressed up like a guru, a holy man, would claim that he has a lot of magical powers. Then he would start showing special feats, like he would pierce a trident through his cheek, which actually he does, because we don't have anything that brings blood out of it, because we don't have much big veins there. Or he will say that the village is affected by a bad omen. He would break a coconut and see that there is blood coming out of it. So that's a symbol that the village is affected by a bad omen. And then he would do some special magical rituals. And then he would take another coconut, break it, alas, and the coconut comes flowers. But these all are small tricks. You know, you can drill this, one corner of the coconut. Out of the 3 small marks there, one is openable, and you can put any stuff there beforehand. You can simply handle it easily. Or small tricks. All these tricks we have been explaining and teaching people how it was done later. But this guru would be doing all these kind of things, and the local villagers really believe that these are magical. Then at a later stage, he would ask people to give a currency note to him, maybe some 10 rupee note or something like that. The 10 rupee bill he takes and he moves his hand and gives back a 50 rupee bill. So that's 5 times it multiplied. So this he repeats 2-3 times, but he continues with all these little miracles for 1 hour or 2, making the whole atmosphere. There's a crowd around, that there's a lot of reverence around. And once he does all these kind of things, at the end of it, normally we select a very young person in early teens to symbolize the rebelling, challenging, young generation. Shubi, for example, has been very active in that, and she has been in many programs. She has been the young student who would challenge this. And so the young rebelling student would challenge it, saying that this is no magic, this is no holy power. This all can be done by sleight of hand, and we can do it. Anybody can do it. And normally, the people are so afraid at that moment. They were thinking till that moment that this guru is very powerful and he has a lot of magical powers. And the guru will say that I will curse you. And I have heard murmuring people all around ask the girl to stop because he can curse. So, but she is already part of the whole training program, and she simply says that, come on, nothing works. And then he's about to curse, and then one of us, and in some program I would do it, I would just go and take away the artificial wig this guru has. And then, then we say that then people are, what do you think what will happen? In the normal situation, what could happen would be the angry people should go and beat him down. That's what we know about the mass attacks and all in India. But in such a situation, what we have experienced is that, very simple, the people burst into laughter. They're relieved. They're happy that moment. Why? Because there was a fear that they have been embounded with. They have been so afraid that there's a magical power which is going to be bestowed upon this little girl. So they're relieved, and that is coming out with a burst of laughter. And when we did it, I didn't really understand what exactly is making these people laugh. But later, I read articles about we call it rationalist reality theater. And there were articles and articles in Western newspapers and publications about the rationalist reality theater, because that was seen as a very unique model which we developed and was seen as a major way of handling these superstitions. And how it was explained? The kind of fear people have to address the questions that are coming against their faith is defended so vehemently. Whatever reason you give to explain it is not accepted by the faithful. Why? Because he has a fear. Because what he has been defending all his life is now being challenged. That can be detrimental. So then there is a defensive mechanism that he develops, and so afraid to address this issue. This is known as cognitive dissonance. That's a very famous book about cognitive dissonance by Daniel Dennett, a famous psychologist, one of the topmost psychologists the contemporary times has. And he has been speaking about this cognitive dissonance that works. That the moment the clash is over, he's relieved. He's happy that the conflict is over. His own conflict is over. So the people who come out of this situation, it's very easy for them to come out of this bigotry, this fanatic, faith-bound structure. He starts thinking about all these kind of things in a critical way himself or herself. The difference here is, when we troll faith, we troll the superstition of people, we make jokes about them, sometimes it's counterproductive. If you humiliate somebody's belief, it's counterproductive. Because the more you do that, they are in a defenseless position and they make a defensive mechanism that will block any kind of reasoning that comes to the person. But if we break it in a very, very unconventional way, that helps people to come out. That is why this model was very, very much appreciated. There are articles on YouTube about, on Wikipedia about the rationalist reality theater. And this has been shown in BBC, in Discovery, in History Channel, a lot of television channels. This has been shown later. But when we originally started this, there was no television, reporting all these kind of things. This was just local groups of people. Thousands of villages we have done it. And that's one of the ways the idea of critical thinking and rationalism spread a hidden root. It spread very slowly down in the Indian territory. And that has been a wonderful program that we've been doing. But nowadays, televisions have taken over, and we can challenge all these questions and address these issues on the media. Mainstream media, reports our work, and our voice is heard. Well, it could be part of history. One should actually write about the mechanism, how this rationalist reality theater works and how successful that was. There's a documentary, Guru Busters, partially showing this thing. Also in Discovery and the History Channel, there are some documentaries. If possible, I locate them and republish it, because it will be interesting for a new generation of people who would like to see how superstitions were addressed some decades back in India. Thank you.
What a trip down memory lane. It was such an educational program, I remember. It really made me understand the meaning of logical reasoning and, rationalist thinking in general. So moving on to the next question. This question is by Avinash Mehta from Kanpur. I have seen programs of faith healers and televangelists like Benny Hinn. The healers move their hands and people fall down magically. Similarly, in some Christian congregations, also people jump and hysterically dance in frenzy. Some speak other languages that they are never studied. How are all these things possible?
Well, now YouTube is full of all this kind of stuff. You can see, for example, Benny Hinn is a very interesting example. He's a very famous American televangelist. And what he does is, he comes to the stage like all faith healers. That's a very famous book, Flim Flam, by James Randi, about these people. These are people who make high drama on the stage. Benny Hinn, for example, comes to the stage, and he's shouting a lot and magical words and biblical quotations, and he move dramatically and raise his voice. High pitch of drama he makes, and then he calls people to the stage. Then he moves his hand with a sound like that. So people simply fall back. They will simply fall back, and, well, people are carrying them off. Then another set of people come. So he would chant certain biblical words, and then as if a magical beating they get, and they all fall down. In Mumbai, some years back, Benny Hinn came. And on a stage, the policemen who were protecting this stage were called to the stage, and he moved his hand and they all fell down. Then there's a hysteria in the whole crowd, and they cry and scream, and he could make the people dance on his tunes. But it's not only Benny Hinn. If you go to the American these faith healing groups, prayer congregations, everywhere you can see such things. These people shout and scream and make sounds, and sometimes blow some air on them and people fall down, and sometimes people are jumping as if they are hysteric, all kind of dramatic things. And this is like an unbelievable theater, like an absurd theater it looks like for a person who does not understand the whole mechanism. But similarly, if you now, it's internet times, and we can access a lot of information. If you look at the Sufi groups somewhere, there are also people with somebody chanting certain Quranic words, and people are jumping and dancing, and all these kind of things you can see. Getting people hysteric is very easy. That's not only in religious select groups. I mean, if you go to a demonstration of a political party, you can see people are getting completely frenzied. When they shout slogans, after some time, they don't understand what they're speaking. They are completely frenzied and completely charged. It's very easy that people have a tendency to respond to rhetoric sounds. Well, even a little child, if you make a drum in a certain rhythm, they will start moving and dancing accordingly. So our human body responds to any kind of rhythm. Also, there is a herd behavior pattern that we have. If you see, we are a group. In our group, if a certain number of people do a certain thing, a certain kind of response if they have, it's like an infection. Others respond the same way. You would have heard of the ghost-affected schools. I've studied many of them. I mean, during my India times, I mean, when I've been on televisions, there was a school in Himachal Pradesh, for example. There's a story that there was a ghost of a person who died somewhere, is back there, and some girl is making a lot of complicated body structures and rolling on the floor and all these kind of things. Eventually, the whole class does the same thing. Not one person, but a certain kind of unnatural expression when you have, there is a collective delusion is formed. The delusion that a single person has can be transferred to other people by seeing it, because we want to become a part of a group and you want to identify with the group. Without knowing, we want to become part of that and you follow that. And you are afraid that you cannot be separated from the group behavior, because then you are out of the group. The common, the primate behavior as a herd is coming out here. When the people who are in front of you are falling down with a certain gesture of your hand, other people certainly will fall down. That's the whole trick of the faith healers. Most of the first set of people are trained volunteers or paid people who are doing it. Then it follows. I've seen videos, you can see on the internet also. Before this, for example, before the meetings of the Pentecostals, there are training sessions behind the scene for the first set of people to act, how to respond to things. And most of the times, the people who come and claim that their ailments have gone, I've been limping, but now I walk properly. You can see the same people appearing in several programs in different places because they are professionals who are doing it. The moment you start it, others follow it. It's a group hysteria that is developed very carefully and systematically that creates an atmosphere of total submission. The whole problem is these kind of movements ask people to submit, surrender, and make you weak. On the other side, what we need is confident people who can address their problems themselves, to come out of fear and face life by themselves and address it confidently and mutually supporting, not mutually depending. I don't want to follow anybody who is falling down. I want to see my colleagues standing up. And that should be the spirit of what we should have, not these people who will fall down on a just movement of a hand, not the kind of people who would fall down if somebody blows some air on them, because they are vulnerable, weak-minded people, and they are building up more and more weak-minded people, more submissive people. And that's following a certain pattern and creating a kind of mass hysteria based on the mass delusional patterns. And that is what is the major danger of these faith groups. The fanatic, select faith groups take people to this extent. Luckily, majority of the people who are on the spiritual line are not on that path. Many people take spirituality as part of their belief system. Maybe if somebody wants to pray and get some confidence out of that, well, I say that it's of no meaning, but let him do it, or let her do it. I don't have any problem. But if people are asked to be submissive, to become weak, to surrender, to take out their self-confidence and making them dependent on you, if that is done by somebody, that should be addressed not only by non-believers, but also by sensible believers. We have to fight this kind of terrible exploitative structure jointly and together. Should be.
So this is the last question for today, and it is, what is your opinion about the French form of secularism? How do you compare it with Indian secularism? This question is asked by Ansari Kent from UK.
Well, I mean, that's a very big difference. In the word secularism was coined by Holyoake, a British thinker. The meaning, it only means separation of state and religion. We have the First Amendment in USA, which makes a clear wall between the state and religion. But as a political philosophy, this has been developed by Holyoake. So the idea is that in Britain, you know that everything is connected. Britain does not have a written constitution. It's a lot of bills and decrees and verdicts together. Collectively, we call it as a British constitution. It's one of the finest examples of an unwritten constitution, but it's never written also. The British structure asks for, Britain is one of the most secular countries in the whole world, practically. The majority of the people do not belong to any kind of faith. The largest section of British population are the non-faith people. And that's the largest growing section of people also. But all the same, Britain still has a monarch. The monarch is to be coronated by the Canterbury Archbishop. These structures are existing there. So in British secularism, Britain is a de facto secular country, but not a de jure secular country. It's by legal terms, if you take, it's not a secular country, because there is a Canterbury Archbishop is still the head of the faith system, and then the state head of the state, the monarch, is to be coronated by the Archbishop. All these kind of structures are existing, but de facto, in reality, Britain is a secular country. In all practical purposes, it's secular, and you can live a very happy and fearless life without any kind of faith. And freedom of expression is granted to one of the highest forms that's available in Britain. Having said that, the idea of secularism, which Holyoake has developed, has grown into a new dimension over the years, with the secular movements all around the world and the free thought movements and the rationalist movements coming up with ideas. It got 2-3 more dimensions. Number one, it's not only the separation of state and religion. What separation of state and religion? The state should not interfere into the affairs of the religion, and the religion should not interfere into the affairs of the state. But to what extent state cannot interfere into the matters of religion? If it is interfering into public security, public health, or public well-being, then state can interfere. But religion, as a unit, cannot interfere into state affairs. It should look after the ecclesiastical affairs, not the state affairs, very clearly. But the modern view of secularism involves more things. Separation of religion and education is part of secularism, because educational institutions are used by most of the religions that run the educational institutions, especially the church, and also the madrasas at another side. But apart from that, if any voluntary organization run by a religious organization is looking after education, though the laws may not permit, they would bring in religion directly or indirectly in the structure. So separation of education and religion is accepted almost everywhere in the modern world. Even in India, by law, it's forbidden to teach any religion in the schools. Of course, you study religion as part of history or part of our tradition, and you have to study history and mythology and all, but religious instruction, religious practices are not followed or instructed by a school. It's not allowed in India. The NCERT curriculum is very clearly speaking against such practices. On the other side, in many countries, like in many Islamic countries, it's not done the same way. Religious education is part of the education. In earlier times, religion was taught in schools. So we have separated religion and education in many countries. India, I come to France after this because that's a very important point that you have asked. But now the third part of secularism is religion and morality or the value system are separated. Very good examples are, for example, divorce is not permitted in Christianity. They believe that marriage is done in heavens and it cannot be separated. Even in the Indian Christian Marriage Act, a divorce is not permitted by law. Certain conditions are there that involves the proving of adultery. Other reasons, non-compatibility is not allowed in the Indian Christian marriage laws. So the morality, which includes what? Marriage, separation, and the value system that we have. What is moral, what is good, what is bad? For example, one of the value system is that nobody should end their life because life is given by God. But in many modern countries, there are movements that are asking for the right of people when they are very much suffering with illness, unbearable pain they have, and they cannot be cured with medical treatment. They have a right to ask for medical intervention for their death. It was not allowed. Euthanasia was not allowed in many countries. Even now it's not allowed in many countries. Most of the countries it's not allowed, but there are countries that allow it, like Netherlands allows it. Some states in United States it allows. So that's a changed value system. There are many values that did not exist earlier, came now. For example, the right of people to live with the same gender was a sin and also a crime by law. New value system developed in the last 30 years. We understand that that's the nature of people. Many people are naturally, gays or lesbians. A very small number of people, of course, as compared to the heterosexual people. But that's respected now, and that's law, and it's approved everywhere. In civilized world, it's approved. So that's a changed value system. So religion, for example, if you go to Bible, a whole city was burned by Jehovah simply because they were homosexuals there. So that is a value system given by Bible. So that we have moved away from that. Many countries have moved away from that. So the value system, many of that has eventually changed. Can couple live together without a marriage? So the religious values don't allow that. But even in India, that's now Supreme Court has approved that. So the values are changing. So that's separating the values from religion is the third aspect of secularism that's coming. So secularism is not only separating state and religion, but separating education and religion and the value system and religion. These are the three aspects of secularism, which is coming slowly into the present context. In India, secularism is interpreted very differently. First by Dr. Sarvepalli Radhakrishnan, one of our former presidents, who was a scholar and philosopher. He first said that tolerance of all religions and coexistence of all religions is what secularism is in the Indian context, is what he said. That's a thing that is not opposed by anybody, but that is a different word which is known as pluralism. Pluralism is part of any civilized society. We all have to live together. The Christian and the Muslim and the Hindu and the Jew or the Jain or the Sikh or the non-believer, we all have to live together without fighting each other. we all have to tolerate having all our differences of views. We are a civilized society and we have to have civil ways of living together. That is why we should have a plural society. So pluralism is something totally different. And unfortunately, quite a lot of ignorant people mix up secularism with pluralism. That's sheer ignorance because they don't understand the term pluralism and they don't really understand what secularism means. Anyway, pluralism is not at all disputed by anybody, by any civilized society, but secularism certainly is disputed by many countries officially. So secularism is a point that we are still fighting for in many countries, and there are many levels of secularism in many parts of India. For example, in India, for example, some of the temple committees are run by the state. Tirupati Devaswam Board is run by the state. The Kerala, the Sabarimala temple is controlled by a Devaswam Board, which is a committee with government representatives running it. The money collected there is going to the state. And this whatever development work which is to be done there is to be done by the state there. Unlike the Sikh Gurudwara Prabandhak Committee, where they decide for themselves. Of course, there is also a problem. Government is giving a huge grant to the Gurudwara Prabandhak Committee. Also for the Hajj Committee, government is giving money for people to travel. So here in many temples, either the money is coming and which is used in the exchequer and used for public purposes, or the government is spending money for these purposes. But why can't we separate it carefully and to be made in a way that this is not overlapping? These are the issues of secularism in India. Whereas coming to France, that's a great model. France has a tradition of rejection of the religious authority from the times of French Revolution. That has been a landmark movement in France that overthrew the monarchy as well as the authority of the church. The people have taken over the power. There was a lot of other reasons, which includes unemployment, poverty, and agrarian crisis, and a lot of other things worked. And what they got was not really a very modern state at that time. They have guillotined and killed all those people who were in power, and which led to another monarchy under the leadership of Napoleon Bonaparte. Well, I mean, those were all setbacks of the initial movement of the French Revolution. But eventually, what developed in France was a model of secularism, which makes a clear separation between state and religion. Religion is the freedom of everybody. Anybody can practice their faith. Nobody is interfering into that. But the state should not allow any religion to interfere into its affairs. For example, anybody who represents a state, the French state, can use a religious symbol. For example, if you are a Muslim and want to wear hijab while you are in your official duty, no, it's not permitted. You cannot wear a hijab when you represent the government. You cannot appear on a national television wearing a hijab. But is it discrimination against Muslims? No. You cannot hang a cross on your neck also. You're not allowed to do that also. You cannot wear a skull cap of a Jew as a teacher in a school. No school is allowed to show a crucifix. Even a Catholic school is not allowed to show a crucifix in the class. You can do it. All you can do in their religious teaching center. On your home, you can do. If you want to wear hijab or anything, niqab or whatever you want, at your place, when you go to the market, you can wear that. But not in the government institution, not in the education institution. It's not allowed. Like in most of the European countries, tolerance is a subject to study in the classrooms. I can tell you, even in Finland, tolerance is a subject in the classrooms. Also, how to protect our environment is a subject in the classrooms. How to live in a plural society without hurting other people is part of our education. How to tolerate other value systems, other way of livings, the options of life. For example, tolerance to gay people is a lesson in the pre-high school students, in their syllabus in Finland. Imagine that. That's everywhere in Europe, almost everywhere. Because rights of people are respected. It's understood, told to people how to live with other worldviews, other way of lives, and without interfering into others' life, allowing people to do what they want without affecting the society, and having tolerance. Tolerance is an important part of the education system in France. France especially. You know the famous case recently, then when in the lessons, while having the lessons of tolerance, a teacher showing a picture of the controversial Charlie Hebdo cartoon in the class was beheaded by a select Muslim student. That has been a big issue in France. Because why this picture was shown? Because you know what's the tradition of France? France fought against Catholic power. But that doesn't mean that they have to tolerate other select religious structures. Anybody can practice their faith. When the Notre Dame cathedral was burned down, it was restructured by the government because it was a historic piece. The government paid the money to restructure it. But all the same, nobody can impose their faith on other people. We all have to live with others' faith. We have no right to interfere into, see, I'm an atheist, but I don't have a right to touch somebody else's faith. And a Christian has no right to touch the faith of a Muslim. And a Muslim has no right to touch the faith of a Hindu. You can criticize. You can say that it's absurd. You can preach against it, but you cannot force anybody with your faith. You cannot impose your faith on anybody. People have to live in tolerance. That's the key and crux of the French secularism. The laity means the persons out of the clergy is independent of any kind of ecclesiastical influence. That's the fundamental view that France is maintaining. And for example, when this teacher was killed, you know how France reacted to it. You know what was the background of it? Charlie Hebdo, this cartoon magazine, published a series of cartoons of Muhammad. As per Islamic belief, nobody is allowed to draw a picture of Muhammad. If you draw a picture of Muhammad, then you will be made a picture on the wall. That's the whole idea. You'll be killed. Nobody is allowed to make a picture of Muhammad, but it's their belief. They need not draw the picture of Muhammad. But if somebody else wants to draw it, it's none of their business. So why should they bother about what others are doing? So the cartoon, very clearly, they made several caricatures of Muhammad. And you know how it was reacted to? Some Muslim fundamentalist groups decided that the Charlie Hebdo magazine is to be punished. They went and shooted down many of the cartoonists and the editor of this paper. They all died. But when the trial begins, 7 years later, Charlie Hebdo magazine decided to republish the same cartoons again, telling that we stand for our right, freedom of expression. And that was again taken as an offense by the select group of Muslims. And the French way of reaction to it was very simple. Every government office made a picture of the same controversial Muhammad's caricature in a illuminated form. Everywhere it was shown. That is how France reacted to it. Very clearly, Emmanuel Macron said that France is a secular society and the model of secularism of modern world, and it will remain so. So India has to go a long way to reach the French courage to address religious tolerance and secularism. Thank you.
Well, thank you, sir, for the informative and clear answers. And we are done with the questions that were provided. And we are now moving on to the audience questions. we can take up 2 more questions. So please click the hands raised tool at the bottom if you wish to ask a question. And please be precise when you ask a question and avoid asking sub questions. Okay, so I think we have AB Ibrahim here who has raised his hand. I will unmute him.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Am I audible? With regard to the kosher, it comes to the second book of the Bible, Exodus. That is the book written by the Moses. Sanal, whether we can have a discourse on Jewish rituals as a separate meeting, in a separate meeting, because the kosher is introduced by Moses as a part of the order given by Lord Jehovah. So prior to that, whether kosher is still existing in the Abraham's period, Isaac period, as well as in the Jacob period. Also, the second question is with regard to the secularism. Anyway, nowadays, the India is facing a threat to the secularism. Today, 1,456 accounts from Twitter has removed. So I am still afraid whether India is going to a country where the existence of religion is going in a higher way. Thank you.
I think that is the second question I will answer first. Well, of course, I don't like the idea that Twitter accounts are cancelled. I believe in the free expression of ideas. But that's not connected with secularism per se. That's different. Because the issue was connected with freedom of expression in regard to a struggle of farmers that is going on. It's not connected with religion. Secularism is an issue which is connected with freedom of religion. So this is, of course, it's if you take freedom of expression in a different way, and if people's rights to express their views, political dissent, well, I mean, the cancelling the Twitter accounts, I would not personally approve that, but we should not mix up things, and that's not an issue of secularism. Now, coming to the kosher, see, the Moses, again, Moses is not a historic person. There is no evidence that Moses ever existed. Musa Nabi, as per the Muslims, or Moses as per the Jewish and Christian faith, is a mythological character. There is a very famous book, Moses and Monotheism, by Sigmund Freud. Freud was not only a psychologist, but he has been writing a lot of critique of religion also. This book is very interesting, how being a person brought up in the Jewish tradition, how he understood the whole process of mythology connected with Moses is explained there. So the biblical story of Moses, leaving apart, in Talmud also, you know, the Jews have two major religious texts. One is Talmud and the second is the Old Testament, but Christians have not taken the whole of Old Testament of the Jews. But in Talmud also there is restrictions about how meat is to be, how slaughtering is to be done. That's coming from a Semitic tradition that blood is sin. That's the key of it. We can discuss about this matter later also, how the idea of sin developed in different tribes, and predominant tribes, when they become politically powerful, how their belief goes into the people and become a common faith is a matter of public interest and historical importance. But the taboo that is connected with the Jewish faith, which later came to Christianity and which later came to Islam, is coming from one same area, and that has no scientific justification, no other justification. In modern view, that is one of the cruelest ways of killing an animal. We can discuss about it later also.
Next, we have Baiju Gypsy. I think I will unmute.
Baiju, you have to.
Yeah.
Hello, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Sir, is this personal law defending our secular system. I mean, the lack of uniform civil code.
Yeah.
The next
yeah,
one is,
that's-
okay, continue, sir.
Yeah, please continue with the full sentence.
No, the next is another one. This religion itself is mocking other religions. Everyone stands for their branded God. So
Yeah,
they are mocking each other.
Yeah, the question is very clear. What is our position or on a uniform civil code or the personal laws? If you ask my position, I would say that I'm very clearly standing on the side of a uniform civil code for all Indian citizens. Undoubtedly. There is no doubt about that, because if we can have a common criminal law, why should we have, different laws? You know, what is there in the personal laws? The law of inheritance, the law of marriage, the law of divorce. Why should it be different for people who are coming from different religions? Are we all not civilized people who are to be treated equal? If one is born in a Muslim family, the lady has no right to divorce the guy. On the other side, the man, as per the Muslim personal law that exists in India and in some other parts of the world also, I'm not speaking about Sharia. There is still dispute about in many Muslim countries don't have this kind of divorce laws. It has changed in many countries. But India still has a Muslim personal law that allows men to decide unilaterally to divorce. He can say talaq. Now triple talaq is banned, but at the end of the day, a man has a right to marry 4 times simultaneously. Well, polygamous families are in many places, and that's respected in some cultures also, including in many parts of the United States. That's a different thing. But why this right is only for a man? If a man has a right to decide he needs 4 wives, why not the female has the same right? If that's good, why not the female has the same right? There was a historic reason for this kind of laws. At a time when Muhammad's wars were going on, most of the men were in the war, and their number was declining so well because a lot of people were killed in the wars. When the number went down of the men, for making an equilibrium in the society, the available men had to marry more women so that they have a marital life. Perhaps that was the political compulsion that was of those times, but that's not the situation now. Why should we have the same laws that was formed in a certain situation, historic situation? Well, it was not presented because of this pragmatic reason, but it was given as a revelation coming from as an ayat by Allah that this was permitted for other people, but not for Muhammad. Muhammad had an exclusion to marry more people, and he could even marry anybody, including the stepson's wife, and he asked her to divorce and marry her. But that's a different thing. Most of these old emperors did all these kind of things. Muhammad, I would like to see as an emperor, not as a prophet. He was an emperor. As many emperor, like Constantine, like Augustus, he was an emperor, and most of these emperors did all these nasty things. And so did Muhammad. So we need not separate Muhammad as one of the worst kind of emperors. You look at the history of the Roman emperors, most of them have been doing all these kind of things. But leaving apart from that, coming to the personal laws in India, there is injustice involved in that. We should have a common civil law, which is based on a humane value system, a humane system. For example, divorce, if people are not compatible together, they should be allowed to be divorced in any religious background. Any civilized society would accept that. People are beating each other and they cannot live together. And who on earth would want them to be together? Secondly, if inheritance is, parental inheritance is to be continued, there should be equal inheritance to male and female. But look at the Islamic structure. The division of property is the daughter's children get lesser property. And as per many inheritance laws, which is part of the Hindu structure also, there is a lot of inequality. For example, in certain Hindu families, the daughter's children would get property rights and the son's children would not get property rights. There is a lot of discrimination. And just because you are born in certain caste or religion, your laws are different from some other people. You don't get equal justice. Why shouldn't we have a humane, value-based, and a civilized inheritance law good for everybody? Why shouldn't we have a humane marriage law, a humane divorce law? All of us have a right to live, based on the better humane value system. So that should be corrected. In my view, a uniform civil code, not going for a Hindu law implemented on everybody or a Muslim law implemented on everybody, but a perfectly humane and civilized and modern law available to everybody, whatsoever religion they are coming from, whatsoever caste they are coming from. That is part of a civilized way of living. No matter who asks for it. I mean, if somebody whom I don't like politically asks for it, that doesn't mean that I have to go away from this idea also. Because a humane value system and a humane law for everybody is equally important that we all have humane criminal laws.
Well, thank you. And because of the limited time, I really feel like that we can't take up more questions. But I would ask, and I would like the other people to, come for the next session and do ask these questions. So also, we are yet to upload the videos of the previous meetings. They all will be uploaded soon on the YouTube channel of Rationalist International. There will soon be separate playlist on that channel for videos in English, excerpts from TV programs of Sanal Edamaruku in English and Hindi also. We will also be uploading the major speeches from the Rationalist International conferences in that post. We end now. Please remember, next week onwards, our meetings will start 2 hours later than now. It used to, so whatever the time you have right now, 2 hours later than that is when we'll start our meetings from the next session. Meeting links will be available on the Facebook and Twitter pages of Sanal Edamaruku and Rationalist International. I thank you, Sanal sir, for being a part of this, and we hope to see you soon next session.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.